Hi, welcome back. This is Kristen, continuing in this series about alcohol and alcohol problems. And I just wanted to make another video along the same lines as I've done in a couple of other earlier ones about how alcohol problems operate the same way in everyone ultimately. After it's been established that somebody's on this progression of this problem, of this process, it operates the same way. And I just wanted to clarify a couple things because I think there remains ongoing confusion about what constitutes an alcohol problem or alcoholism, because people have a lot of different ideas about it based on, how they're brought up, what their family does, what's considered normal, what they've heard over the years. Television, movies, media portrays alcohol in all kinds of different ways, normalizing heavy drinking in a way that doesn't portray the actual effects of alcohol at all. So again, there's a period of time where someone is drinking and perhaps increasing their drinking, their volume of drinking and their frequency of drinking. There's a period of time where the dependence on alcohol is more emotional, psychological. And over that time period, changes are taking place in the body as the body adjusts to the amounts of alcohol going into it. So there will be changes taking place in systems of the body that regulate your stress response, that determine, what you view as valuable in terms of something that you're motivated to repeat or motivated to go get as a solution or something that might feel rewarding in some way. And your homeostasis all around. So as you drink, the body adjusts what it's doing, because alcohol is now in there doing something, right? So the body has to maintain that balance to keep you well, and it will do that. And over time, then changes will start to take place, changes that are more firmly now rooted as a real functional change, right? And as those changes take place, there will be changes in how you relate to alcohol, how you feel about it, how you think about it. Because how you think about it has got to reflect what your nervous system is communicating to you about how you're feeling, whether you feel anxious or not, whether you feel safe or not. Safe meaning I'm not under threat emotionally, okay? Just in that sense. And so the thinking will arise out of this whole process here, right? In this time period where you're psychologically and emotionally getting more and more attached to alcohol, or that alcohol is becoming more of a focal point for you in your life, you're progressing with those changes that are taking place, and it can take all kinds of amounts of time in your life to be in this category here before you would get to physical dependence. So some people might be only, psychologically dependent on alcohol for a long period of time, 20, 30 years perhaps, before they've crossed this threshold in themselves that has then put them into a state where they're literally physically dependent on alcohol because their body and their brain has now determined that the function that alcohol is performing is going to be left to alcohol to perform because the brain has stopped doing it. And that's why when you're over here and you don't consume alcohol, you might have seizures because there are no stops to the firing of your brain, for instance, and it's just kind of getting out of control and more escalated and escalated. And And so then we have those withdrawal symptoms, high anxiety, high heart rate. There's just the body no longer performs that function because it learned over a span of time that alcohol performs that function. So the brain and the body, it's not going to produce the chemistry and do the things it would have normally done without all that learning about alcohol being the thing now that's doing that, you see. The body certainly can't continue to do the function of alcohol while alcohol is going in, because if it did, you wouldn't survive drinking. So the body will respond by, escalating things, speeding things up, causing more, you could say, more of a heightened stress response on a regular basis, like I've talked about in other videos, to counteract the sedative effect of alcohol. It has to do that to keep you functioning, to keep your heart beating, right? And so then when you don't get alcohol, now you're really in trouble, you see? Okay. But this could last 20 or 30 years over here, or it could last a much shorter amount of time. As I've said, people can become physically dependent at quite a young age. Everyone's different. Every scenario is different. There's different, I've heard people say, well, there's different types of alcoholics. It's not really that there's different types of alcoholics. It's just that there is a variety of how one is moving along this road. There might be a thing that we call binge drinking, right? Where if a person has any amount of alcohol at all, that night they're going all the way. It's just they are that sensitive to alcohol where the minute it hits, they are now, it's just go till you drop, right? And maybe you've known people like that. That's a certain option on this road, for sure, but that isn't a different road. That isn't a different kind of alcoholic. It's just that that's their rate of consumption, or that's how they're doing it, how their body is reacting to it. Someone else might be a much slower burn, like just a slow, gradual increase of amounts and frequency of drinking. Other people might have heavy drinking, get into some legal trouble, stop drinking, then resume drinking if some stress occurs in their life, or something happy occurs in their life and there's a celebration, right? And they pick it up again, and then there's heavy drinking again, and then they stop again. And there could be a heavy drinking, sobriety, heavy drinking, sobriety, heavy drinking, sobriety. Meanwhile, every time they go and pick it up again, guess what? They're moving this way. They're drinking more and more each time. Maybe you've experienced that. There could be people who, I see a lot, there's communities where there's a culture of drinking, okay? I think, I live in a rural environment, and I think it's pretty common that people drink. There's not maybe much that they perceive that there is to do otherwise. And it becomes very normal to that community or to groups of people to drink in certain amounts that, while it's becoming normalized to them, it's actually heavy drinking. And they just might not even realize it, just because it's just what we do. It's just what is being done. And someone could also just be, partaking in that because that's their social connection, or maybe that's their family. And this is, we need connection, we need family, right? And so, again, like I've said in other videos, people, get into this problem quite innocently. And you could just be drinking on a regular basis over some years' time, and say you're a woman, and before you know it, it's, 5-10 years down the road, you've been socializing with your good friends and whatnot and your family and drinking the way you all do. And before you know it, you get a DUI, and you're like, I got a DUI, but I don't have a drinking problem, because You just don't see each other that way, you know? But then when you take a look at, well, how much are you really drinking, right? Are you drinking within low risk drinking limits, as the doctors may speak of when you go to the ER and they ask you all these questions and they ask you, how much you're drinking, right? Well, for a woman, I think it's considered one serving a day, a maximum of 7 servings in the week. And if you were to skip days, I believe you're not supposed to go over 2 drinks, maybe 3, but I think it's 2 for a female. And certainly not more than 7 servings in a week. Servings, okay? That's not a martini at the bar. A martini at a bar might be 3 servings of vodka or gin, right? Depending on the glass. A serving size of wine, I think, is 5 ounces. Beer would be like the kind of beer that's not the high alcohol content beer and not the tall boy. A tall boy is what, 2.5 servings, but it might even be more because the content of the alcohol might be much higher. So I think that's 12 ounces for like an old-fashioned beer. 1 serving a day is considered low-risk drinking limits. And nowadays, really, we hear, oh, there's no healthy limit, or, you shouldn't be drinking at all. Alcohol is just poison. There is that out there in the media, and I'm not going to argue with that. That's probably true. It's a risky thing, that's for sure. If you look at my other videos, and if you look at anyone's videos where they're providing education about the effects of alcohol on the body, it is playing with fire if you're drinking on a regular basis. And it could just very easily happen to anybody that they actually find themselves having a drinking problem before they even realized they were even approaching such a thing, because it's just part of their normal week that they drink with others in this way. Maybe just dinner drinking, right? But then over time, if a woman's consuming a bottle of wine a night, it's time to look at what's your relationship to that. It's time to look at, how do you feel about that? How would you feel if someone said, hey, you can't have alcohol anymore? Would that be okay with you? And you've got to really try to be honest with yourself about that, because like I've said, your changing is going to evolve over time. Your thinking is going to evolve over time. And there's going to be real serious pockets of denial in your thinking. And so you could say, well, yeah, I could stop drinking. I just don't want to, but I could. Okay, but how would you feel if you couldn't have alcohol in your life anymore? How would that feel? So it's not a threatening question. It's just a question to assess, how emotionally attached am I? I need to know, how emotionally attached am I to alcohol? How centered is it in my life? How much is it really a priority for me? How much have I prioritized alcohol? These are the questions I would ask to determine whether or not you're on this road. Okay, and if you're on the road, the fact is, the only way to get off the road is to not put alcohol into your body. Because as I just said before, the person who stops drinking and then starts drinking again, they move this way each time they come back to it. They'll need more over time, especially if there's been no change in their relationship to it. Okay? If they haven't established other ways in their life of feeling well, of feeling balanced, of feeling okay with themselves, of being happy with themselves, of feeling relaxed, or if they have found ways to be okay with not feeling great, if they can sit with not feeling awesome with themselves, if they can have uncomfortable feelings, if they can sit there and realize, oh, you know what? I haven't gotten over X, Y, and Z in my past. And I feel like crap about that. I feel like crap about that, right? So they're just sitting there and they're not drinking it away. They're not numbing it, because it's okay. It's okay to not feel good. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. You know, can you manage these things without alcohol? So these are the questions. How attached are you? It's gonna work the same way with you, no matter your education, your sophistication, no matter your I don't know, your genetic whatever. It doesn't matter. If you're a human being and you're drinking regularly and you already know you're attached and you're at least emotionally dependent upon alcohol to perform the function of relieving you of anxiety and stress and emotional pain and the like, if you don't feel comfortable without drinking, you're on this road. Okay? So hopefully that clears up some confusion. There's all different ways to be right here, all different kinds of ways and all different kinds of time periods. But the questions are about your relationship to alcohol. How are you using it? Why are you using it? And really do your best to be honest with yourself about that. Because if you're here somewhere, this process is going to cause you to think in a way that will betray you. Okay? So I hope that's helpful. Thanks for watching.